What has emerged in the last few hours is not a confirmation of peace between the United States and Iran, but a new point of tension within the crisis itself. The name that started circulating as a possible channel of contact with Washington was Mohamed Bagher Ghalibaf, the president of the Iranian parliament. The information appeared amid Donald Trump's statement that he was dealing with the right people in Iran, while Tehran publicly continues to deny that there is any real negotiation underway. Reuters, AP, Washington Post, Guardian, and Wall Street Journal all agree on one point. There is indirect mediation, there is an exchange of messages through intermediary countries. But so far, there is no public and solid confirmation of a direct agreement between Trump and Galibaf. Who is this figure who has moved to the center of the discussion? Ghalibaf is not a secondary figure. He is the current president of the Iranian parliament, has been commander of the Revolutionary Guard, led the national police, and was also the mayor of Tehran. In other words, he is not a traditional diplomat, nor a conventional moderate. He is a figure shaped within the regime's hardline apparatus, with political influence, a military background, and access to centers of power. Because of this, some in Washington believe that if any dialogue is possible with a faction of the Iranian system, it may need to go through someone who understands the security, politics, and behind-the-scenes workings of the regime. At the same time, when this rumor gained traction, especially between March 24 and 25, 2026, after Trump publicly stated that the United States was talking to the right leaders in Iran and that productive talks were underway. During the same period, however, the Iranian response was harsh. Officials connected to the country's military apparatus said that Washington was negotiating with itself, in an attempt to undermine the American narrative and show the domestic audience that Iran is not publicly giving in to pressure from the United States. This clash between Trump's statement and the Iranian denial is the core of the story. Where this dispute is really happening, not just on the military front, but on three fronts at the same time. The first is the public arena, with contradictory statements from Washington and Tehran. The second is the diplomatic front, with countries like Pakistan, Turkey, Egypt, and others acting as intermediaries to carry messages from one side to the other. The third is Iran's internal front, where war, economic pressure, and uncertainty about the real center of command intensify the dispute. A dispute between more radical factions and sectors that might accept some kind of compromise to avoid a greater collapse. Reuters reported that possible contacts may go through Islamabad and that central decisions continue to be heavily influenced by the Revolutionary Guard. That's exactly where the most important question comes in. Why would Trump be talking or trying to talk to Galibaf? The most likely answer is not ideological, it's pragmatic. In times of war, Washington usually looks not only for good interlocutors, but for useful and helpful interlocutors. In this case, they would be people with enough authority to influence the system from within, even if they are not seen as Democrats or reformists. Galibaf stands out because he combines the profile of a strongman, the image of a manager, military experience, and access to the political elite. For a White House that wants to force a regime adjustment without necessarily dismantling the entire structure of the Iranian state. At first glance, he may seem more manageable than other figures. That, however, is a strategic reading, not proof that he has already made a deal with Trump. Is there another reason for this interest? Today's Iran is not acting as a completely unified bloc. Reuters highlighted that the Revolutionary Guard has expanded its influence in handling the crisis and has taken a tougher negotiating stance, demanding guarantees, compensation, and refusing limitations on the missile program. This means that, even if there are indirect contacts, any political channel needs to navigate dangerous ground full of vetoes, distrust, and struggles for control. If Ghalibaf is indeed being tested as an intermediary, this could indicate that the United States is seeking an internal rift. Or, at the very least, they are trying to identify who still has the ability to negotiate on behalf of a significant part of the system. But this hypothesis has a huge problem. Ghalibaf doesn't rule Iran alone, he's important, but he doesn't hold the highest position in the regime. The real power remains concentrated in deeper structures, especially in the supreme leader and the security apparatus linked to the Revolutionary Guard. Analysts cited in recent reports note that the president of the parliament may even be seen by the American side as a possible partner. However, this does not mean that he has the freedom to deliver an agreement, nor that he will be able to survive politically. If he is perceived by internal rivals as someone willing to give in too much. In other words, even if his name is on the radar, that doesn't solve the main problem, which is knowing who can actually guarantee the fulfillment of any commitment. Reuters reported that even as Trump mentioned talks, the attacks and counterattacks continued. In other words, diplomacy is moving forward amid the sounds of war. This changes everything, because any negotiation made in this environment runs the risk of starting out weakened, being overtaken by military events, or being used only as a tactical instrument to buy time. Whoever speaks on behalf of Iran will have to deal with this issue because it mixes oil, currency, global trade, and the capacity for strategic blackmail. If Trump is looking for someone like Galibaf, it may be because he wants a channel with someone who understands that the survival of the Iranian system also depends on avoiding an even greater economic collapse. In the end, the question is why Galibaf? There is a hard and simple answer, because from the American perspective, he may represent an entry point to negotiate with a functional part of the regime, without relying on figures who are currently isolated, weakened, or without real power. But the next question is even more important. Can this work? The honest answer is that there is still no public basis to say that. There are signs of mediation, there is an American package being taken to Iran. There are strong rumors about Islamabad as the venue for contacts. There are reports pointing to Ghalibaf as a name Washington is watching closely, but there is also an official denial from Iran. Deep mistrust, growing influence of the Revolutionary Guard, and ongoing war. Therefore, what we have so far is not proof that Trump is already closing a deal with the Speaker of the Iranian Parliament. What exists is a dangerous development in which Ghalibaf's name appears as a possible bridge, a possible American bet, and a possible focus of internal dispute. Those watching from the outside need to separate fact from noise. The fact is that Washington talks about contacts, the fact is that Tehran denies it, the fact is that Ghalibaf is a heavyweight in the system, and the fact is that indirect mediation is underway. The rest for now still lies in the realm of speculation.